Okay, hello, and welcome to this eSchool News webinar, Harnessing the Power of EdTech for More Effective and Efficient Teaching. My name is Kevin Hogan. I am the editor-at-large for eSchool News, and I'm happy you are joining us today for what I know will be a very insightful and important conversation. This event is brought to you by GoGuardian. GoGuardian solutions are built for K-12 and trusted by over 14,000 schools and districts to create educational environments where every student can thrive. The GoGuardian suite of classroom management and student safety solutions includes GoGuardian Teacher for classroom management, Pear Deck for student engagement, Edulastic for assessment, and Tutor for personalized learning support. They help schools and districts maximize the learning potential of every student by enabling a more productive, effective, and safer digital learning. You can learn more at GoGuardian.com. Now, before we get to our conversation, I'd like to take a minute to go over some of the features of the platform that we're using for this webinar. This event is being recorded, so you don't have to worry about missing a thing. Within a few days, you'll receive an email message that contains a link to the recorded webinar, along with a PDF of the slides. If you have a question or a comment, there's a chat function that you can launch by clicking on it. Please feel free to use this feature to contact someone from the eSchool News team if you have a technical question. But I will emphasize that if you do have any thoughts or ideas that you want to share with Erica or I, please do. It really does aid us to know what sort of information that you're looking for and insights that you're looking for. So with these housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started with our conversations and introductions with Erica. Erica Hartman joined GoGuardian as the subject matter expert for CTO personas on the RevOps and strategy team. She brings more than 20 years of teaching and administrative experience as Chief Technology Officer in public education, helping school districts choose digital platforms that best suit their strategic goals and stakeholders. She specializes in large-scale deployments and implementation, digital architecture of online platforms, data interoperability, digital citizenship, and student safety, always with end user experience and providing actionable data as top of mind. So Erica, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here with you and support eSchool News as well.
Yeah, so I won't date ourselves, but we go back a while having conversations about the future of education technology, probably with our brand new iPhones by our sides and talking about Twitter and Facebook and social media. So we've seen a lot of transformations. I don't remember at any point of us talking about the potential of global pandemics affecting public education, right?
No, don't remember that, but we do go way back. I think I actually met you when I was still a teacher. And I know you always read my long bio, but at the heart of me, I'm always a teacher and always looking to make teachers' lives easier. But yeah, that's how far we go back, pretty far.
That's pretty far. But it also, I mean, it's interesting you talk about that because that really is the end goal of a lot of education technology solutions. And getting that teacher point of view, getting that teacher perspective is kind of like the goal line for most companies' missions in software. Now, during the pandemic, I call it the great beta test, right? I mean, there were all these technologies that were in place that may not have been well liked or used by teachers, either because they had a way they always did things and they wanted to stick with that, maybe a little bit of a fear of technology replacing the type of work they do, changing their work style. But again, the pandemic kind of with that beta test forced everyone to say, well, let's give this stuff a shot, whether we like it or not, right? Talk a little bit about what you've seen as that transformation over these past terrible couple of years.
Well, what I think is definitely the silver lining is twofold. Number one, it levels the playing field. Every teacher is now technology proficient or above because they had to be. And that really just made every teacher have to adopt all of these skills. And they did it. Let's all give an amazing round of applause for teachers. They all stepped up and they all learned how to use these tools. So number one, celebrating teachers for becoming, tech proficient and definitely higher. And the second part of that too is just that every student now has a device. Before the pandemic, some schools were one-to-one, some had carts, some were one-to-many, but now pretty much we can say that pretty much every student has access to a device. And that just levels the playing field. I mean, in terms of equity, every student being able to take home a device and to be able to use a device in the classroom is something that was not the case before the pandemic. So now you're, giving every student equity and every student access. When they go home, they can access, their online content and their platforms. But they can also now do it from anywhere, from the bus, from, the library, outside. They can access their content and education from anywhere. So I think while it was a really rough time, it definitely was the accelerator that we needed, I think, in education to level the playing field just for our teachers and for our students.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it gave, as you said, a lot of teachers agency maybe that they hadn't had before when either they're working within a system or were just told to kind of go out and create their own setups. But why don't you talk a little bit about the GoGuardian system and kind of give our audience kind of a sense, an umbrella of how the solution works?
Sure. GoGuardian really started as GoGuardian admin, just managing student devices and keeping kids safe with our filter. But what most people don't know is that we are a GoGuardian learning system now. So not only do we have the management, the administrative piece and keeping students safe, but we also have Edulastic, which is our assessment tool for formative and summative assessment. Pear Deck, everyone loves Pear Deck, is our student engagement platform. And we have GoGuardian Teacher. GoGuardian Teacher is a classroom management system, but what I like to say, it's more of an instructional tool. And really, GoGuardian Teacher can be the facilitator of all of our other products, such as Pear Deck, Edulastic, and Tutoring, and pretty much any online content that a school is using. Funny story about GoGuardian Teacher is that we were probably one of the first districts to use it, and we rolled it out before the pandemic. I don't know what foresight I had to roll that out before the pandemic, but I am so thankful that we did, because it was really a game changer in being able to not just manage student screens, but really be an instructional facilitator for our teachers. And the one thing that just sticks out in my mind is when I was transitioning from public education over to working at GoGuardian, is that so many teachers said to me, please, please don't get rid of GoGuardian Teacher. I cannot teach without it. And what I love about that statement is, first of all, teachers are the ones that are in the classrooms with the students every single day. They know what they need. They know what the students need. And when a teacher endorses a product like that, then that is the truth. If they need it, then they have to have it. So for me, just being able to make sure that every student and teacher has access to a tool like this really does make learning in the classroom, now that we're back in, just making the most effective and efficient use of that in-person classroom time. Because remember, for some years, a few years, that was really the goal, to get everyone back in. Now everyone is back in, but not only are they back in, they're back in with a device, which really is what we have been wanting for a long time, and now it's here. And just making sure that we're being able to give teachers the tools to balance that screen time and the use of devices within classroom, and being able to make sure that it's being used effectively and efficiently is definitely one of the big goals of GoGuardian. And the other thing too, just going back to the teacher theme, is that we always listen to our customers, and a lot of the feature requests are from teachers. So I'm excited today too to kind of talk about some of those new features that teachers have been requesting that we've released, because we're all about listening to what is going on in the classroom and then being able to deliver on that. And I get, because I know so many districts in the area, I get the privilege of going into classrooms still and seeing some of the new things that we're testing out, seeing them in action, and listening to what the teachers and what the students are saying. And I just love it. I love the energy of going back into the classroom and just hearing what they're saying about the products and how they're using them, because teachers are so innovative and always coming up with new ways to use tools.
Yeah. Well, walk us through, if you will, kind of the day-to-day of the use of that by a teacher. So, I mean, is it starting at home, checking accounts? Give us just kind of like a day in the life of a teacher in the use of that product.
Yeah, so actually it starts probably with the beginning of the year. Teachers just have to set up their class schedule. So it basically is what I call the crock pot of education. Set it and forget it. You set your schedule. when the students come into your class, let's say you're teaching biology every other day at 9 a.m. The second those students open up their device, GoGuardian Teacher is running. And what teachers can do is they can preload content and URLs, maybe an assessment, maybe an entry ticket, to launch immediately. So as soon as the student opens the device, they're in that session and they're going. I can remember being a teacher when I was probably 22 years old and having 25 middle school students in the classroom. Just getting them to come into the classroom with what they need is like the biggest step. But now you're having the other layer on top is, having the device as well. So
Right.
being able to manage humans and devices at the same time. I mean, I couldn't even imagine it. I can't
Right.
imagine going back in time and doing that. And I'm sure Kevin, you probably can't imagine that either. But, being able to set up guardrails to keep students on task, but also be able to preload content really sets both the teacher and the student up for success.
And that's something that they can do at home remotely. I mean, these are remote aspects of this tool.
Yes, so they just set it up before that. And then they can also set up a scene. I know sometimes people say, hey, don't make a scene. My husband is always saying that to me. But what teachers can actually do is that they can preload all the content in a scene and then just launch that scene. So they can launch and push out content to all of their students. And as you can see on the screen here, you can see that students are in different groups and that they are having different content being pushed to them. So what's really important for me is that teachers can personalize and differentiate learning and also pre-curate all of that work. Because if you think about it, a lot of teachers' work is in that planning or that pre-planning, and being able to have access to all of that and just go in live and have everything ready to go is probably one of the best things about GoGuardian Teacher.
Now, and talk a little bit about how that works in conjunction with the other aspects of those arrows in that full solution. Are we talking about the collection, I'm assuming, of some data? Talk about maybe some of the data aspects of the use of these tools.
Sure. So for Edulastic, that's our assessment tool. It can be formative and summative. It could be entry tickets, exit tickets. It could be a full solution for an entire district or maybe just for one teacher. So what it allows teachers to do is that they can actually give an assessment, and then based on the results from Edulastic, they can make groups. So if you have a group of students that has to work on fractions and maybe one on percentages, they can then differentiate that work that students are doing the next day. So what I just love to do is, number one, save teachers time, and number two, make things super easy. So based on that assessment from Edulastic, they can just launch content for that one group and then for the other group, and they can even message and chat with the different groups to make sure that they're on task, and always go back and see historically too, how much time are students spending on a certain application? Do they have any questions? Putting them in groups with their fellow peers as well is also very helpful. So we have Edulastic, which is one of our assessment tools. And then also we have our Pear Deck, which is our student engagement tool. So teachers can either create slide decks of new content, or they can go into our Pear Deck content orchard and pick from our orchard of maybe some pre-made slide decks. And let's say they might have something about multiplying fractions on Pear Deck they want to push out to that one group. So really we give you this entire ecosystem of being able to create content, curate content, and then take all that content and push it out to students immediately. I always go into the classroom, especially when I was observing back in the day, and watching not only the teacher, but also really being thoughtful about the technology use. If it takes longer than 7 to 10 seconds for something to work technology-wise, then it really doesn't have any place in the classroom, because really you're just putting in a barrier, or you're making teachers or students waste more of their time. So this takes away all of that time of, where am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be on this website? What are we doing now? All that time gets taken back. And on average, GoGuardian Teacher saves about 7 minutes of instructional time per class per day. If you think about a middle schooler, I have a 12-year-old in 7th grade, multiply 7 times her 7 periods over the course of the day, that could be up to 49 minutes of instructional time. And so, as an administrator, not even as a teacher, that's something else where I'm like, wow, that is saving instructional time. So that's super powerful.
Yeah, that really is a sweet spot. I mean, just not only just with GoGuardian or other CMSs, but just kind of software, enterprise software in general, right? I mean, if you end up spending more time figuring out how to use it than actually doing what you want to do, there's not much point. And I know for many years, that was a big pain point for a lot of teachers, that these tools weren't saving them time or gaining efficiencies. It was actually just giving them more busy work, right? Do you think it was, I mean, another silver lining of the pandemic that teachers needed to be remote those first couple months, and even the hybrid, to where they became more comfortable with the technology? Or has the technology become sophisticated enough that it isn't a burden, or is a combination?
I think we're at a point now where teachers, are so proficient that we can now take things to the next level. And I think the other side of that is that ed tech companies too have been listening. Maybe, we all did emergency purchasing during the pandemic. And now we're really taking a hard look at, okay, what's working and what's not? What's saving time? What's helping students drive achievement or recover, learning recovery? Let's go back and look at the tools that are actually doing that. And I really, truly believe that our tools are doing that, because we have the assessment built in. We provide teachers with actionable data, even students too. There's student reports where they can look at their own achievement and what they're recovering. And we have the engagement piece too. So all of those things come together in a perfect storm, really, of all the tools that you need for education. So I think, yes, being remote was probably a good thing for teachers just for the proficiency. But now what we're seeing is that teachers are really becoming some of the biggest proponents of making ed tech tools better, and thinking about, okay, well, what if it could do this? And what if it could do that? Like, teachers are always thinking ahead, and always thinking about too, like, how can we extend the school day too? Not just by having it during the school day, but now having students having access to things, in the evening as well.
Right. So that was always the phrase, right? Always on learning, which was one of those theoretical concepts that we would go to events and talk about, the breathless possibilities. But now it's kind of here, right?
Yeah, it's definitely here. And not only is it just individual teachers, but the collaboration built into these tools with other teachers. One of the biggest things that I love about GoGuardian Teacher going back is the ability for teachers to preload that content in. Now, think about it. Teachers can, work together, and they can decide, all right, let's go into a third grade math PLC. Let's think about all the websites that we want students to have preloaded, and let's do this together. So really being able to crowdsource other teachers' ideas, content that's working for them, and being able to put that into one scene is super powerful. Teachers can now share scenes with each other. Think of all the work that is saving. If you have one power user that can create the scene and then share it down. I also always think about first-year teachers coming in and not knowing, what should we be using? What sites are working? What are not? You can have a veteran teacher help a first-year teacher or mentor a teacher and help them create a scene. So I really think that just having teachers be able to, preload all this content really saves a lot of time. And also, let's talk about cognitive load. I think I read, you ever see that meme where, like, this is a teacher's brain, where there's like 300 tabs open in a Chrome browser?
Yeah.
That's a teacher's brain. Being able to have them be able to curate all the content they want beforehand and then have it ready. They're not thinking about that when students are walking in. They're thinking about the student that's right in front of them, the humans that are there, creating a connection with a student, and not worrying about, oh my goodness, is this website going to load? Oh my goodness, I didn't, put the right URL in my learning management system. Doesn't matter, because with GoGuardian Teacher, all of this can be preloaded beforehand. So I think about cognitive load a lot too for our teachers and also for students. So many of us, remember being late for class and walking in and you're like, what's everyone doing? What am I supposed to be doing? But now the student has that guardrail in, all the content is loaded, and they have the confidence to know that they are in the right spot where they should be, and not be worrying like, what did I miss and what should I be doing? So it does save a lot of time.
Yeah. How about when it comes to professional development? I'm assuming there needs to be some sort of introductory, you said, with first year teachers and walkthroughs. Talk a little bit about how that happens.
Yeah, so at GoGuardian, we have in-person professional development. We also have GoGuardian University, where we have tutorials, and we have, I think, once a month or once every 2 weeks, we have product-specific webinars for teachers as well. So, because all of our products were really built with end user in mind, the ability for teachers to learn them, it doesn't take as long as you would think. And especially now that they're all, proficient with technology.
Mhm.
But we have a lot of different ways that teachers can get PD, but we also have, we have Pear Deck coaches and certified programs as well. So teachers are also teaching each other about our products, which is really awesome to see, is that our teachers are becoming power users and then also teaching everybody else in their district about it. And one of the things I love about, being back at in-person events is people coming up to us at the GoGuardian booth and just saying, we love Pear Deck, we love GoGuardian Teacher, we love Edulastic. It's so great to hear that feedback from teachers in person now. And it's so great when they share a story of how they're using it in their classroom. And the story is never the same because
Right.
they're always thinking of different ways to use it.
Let's talk a little bit about the point of view from the student. I mean, I'm assuming are they logging in through Pear Deck, and what does their graphical user interface, their GUI look like versus what the teacher's is? You kind of walked us through the teacher perspective. What happens when the student walks in and logs on, as you said?
Well, actually, the student doesn't even have to log in. If the teacher preloads the session in, it's actually already running. The one thing they usually have to do is maybe authenticate via Clever or ClassLink or their Google single sign-on just one time. But once they're in, they're in. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that they don't really have to navigate anywhere. I remember about probably when I met you, Kevin, way back in the day, walking into a classroom. It was a kindergarten classroom. I remember this very clearly. And the teacher said, take out your login. And a kindergartner, took out a list of handwritten logins. And I thought to myself, there's no way I could even log in this way. There's no way this kindergartner can. And
Right.
I'm not saying anything about the teacher. I'm just saying that's the way it was. There wasn't
Right.
a single sign-on. And now being able to just authenticate, via SSO, sign in and have everything there. Students are so used to using GoGuardian Teacher that I think it was funny. A lot of our students saying my GGT, because it's theirs. They know it's there. It's personalized. It's like, my GGT is working, or my GGT is doing this. And I just love that, because that really means that it's part of the daily learning of the students, is that they're so used to using it that it just becomes part of their daily schedule. And because the interface doesn't really change that much from them from, period to period or class to class, they're really used to being able to use it. And, our other tool, GoGuardian Admin, which is our filtering solution, kind of helps schools to set up those policies and, custom groups for students. And what I love about it is every year I would do this presentation where I would tell them, what is GoGuardian? What is GoGuardian Teacher? Why are we using it? And how is this helping you learn? And I love just doing that, because we get so much feedback from students, because at first they're like, why are you using this? But then when they learned the why behind it, they were much more accepting of it. And it got to the point where we had students actually saying, hey, Mrs. Hartman, is this unblocked? This is something that you should probably block, because I see some students getting to this. So we're actually having them help crowdsource the things that we're blocking. And, and I just love when that, students also are able to take agency and ownership of their learning as well.
Yeah. Now, when you look at, we're talking K-12 here, but obviously there's a wide spectrum of age between your kindergarten and your senior in high school. Are there different strategies from primary grades through middle school through high school when we talk about the use of GoGuardian in these contexts?
Sure. I definitely think, GoGuardian Teacher, we allow teachers to create really tight guardrails, but then also loosen them up. So, for example, at pre-K to 2, a teacher might just load one tab or maybe 2 tabs that they want students to be able to get to during class. Because, that's just the nature, that's, developmentally the right thing to do, is to be able to maybe just go on 1 or 2 different websites. But then as students get older, they need access to more tools. Depending also on the content area of what you're teaching, you might want to only block things at the high school. So you can get to everything, but you can't get to this. So we really just allow teachers to really make those decisions, because they do know what's best for their students and developmentally what's appropriate, so that they can either create an allowed list or a block list. And I think, sometimes as an adult too, I'm thinking to myself, we all could use this in our lives, right? An allowed list and a block list of our effective time. So that's definitely something that, one of the features that I love about it, is that you can really make those guardrails tight, or you can loosen them up.
Now, one thing that I noticed in my reporting over the course of the pandemic, and this is just kind of talking about EdTech in general, for the first time, started to see much more involvement of parents writing about technology and the use of parents, because obviously these devices all went home in March of 2020. They became teaching assistants as well as IT assistants. Has that changed the strategy at all with GoGuardian and with the use of those technologies by the students at home? Does it involve the parents more than maybe they were in the past, BP?
Yes, and I love it. I love that parents are asking more questions, and I love that they're more involved in their students' education and they really want to know more. And, we have two things at GoGuardian. We have the GoGuardian parent app, which is part of our GoGuardian admin product. It's free, it's included with GoGuardian admin. And that does allow parents to look at their students' usage and also set time limits at home. Let's not forget about our parents that also had to become technology proficient during the pandemic. We really expected them to also become the masters of technology. And I think for them, they were in shock. At the amount of different websites that students are using, and also just the inventive ways that teachers were using it. I think parents gained a huge deal of respect for teachers during the pandemic, but also it gave them a window into a world that they usually never see. I mean, I think about, how much access, a normal parent who's not a CTO, who doesn't know anything about Edtech, had before the pandemic into what was going on a daily basis. And now they see everything that's going on. So I think parents are more interested than ever. And I think that's really great. One of the things that our products do is that it generates reports for our teachers so that you can run a report of what a student was doing in class, which I think is actually really helpful. So you can see a student's top 5 websites, top 5 documents, top 5 Google searches, and how many times the teacher has had to intervene. And a lot of times, you think, well, we need to send this to a counselor or a principal because they're doing something inappropriate. But on the flip side, I like to really use this as a learning tool, this report, because sometimes, it's nice to show parents, all right, your student is always on track, or maybe they are coming home with a lot of homework. Well, why are they coming home with a lot of homework? How are they using their time during class? And to be able to give parents access to this if they want to, I think is definitely something that is helpful. I also used to just love printing these out and sitting down with a student. All right, you haven't handed in any homework. You were absent last week. Let's kind of sit down together and let's create some goals for you, how to get back on track. And let's just take a look at your history, your browsing history, and how you're using your time. I feel like sometimes I could use this intervention as well for myself to keep me on track. But I definitely think parents want to know more, and we provide different pathways for them to get that information.
Well, and do you find that students cringe when they see this, or you mentioned that some are actively participating and have a lot more agency in their own learning as well, where they find this not to be a punitive tool, right, but something that is actually helping them on their journey, their learning journey.
I think it's always eye-opening at first for them. Sometimes they even forget that schools are using systems like this. And why would they? If you're in 6th and 7th grade, you're not thinking about that on a daily basis. But I think it's important to remind students that we're setting them up for success. We're putting these guardrails in place for you now, so that when you get your first job or you go out into the work world, you know what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, and maybe we're helping you build skills for how to use your online time wisely. So I always say to the students, in a presentation, we have a filter in place in school, but by the time you graduate, the goal is the filter is in your head, because this filter is not going to be with you in university or in your career. You're going to have to take all the things that you're learning and use the own filter in your mind to do what's right. So, I think that's, a big takeaway for students, and, setting them up for success in the future.
There really is kind of another one of the boogeymen that was BP before the pandemic, was just even talking about data at all. Sometimes that would scare teachers. And as I said in the beginning, it was just kind of saying, teaching is an art, it's not a science. So the data can't inform me, and it's actually kind of putting you're taking away from my style or my teaching style or whatever. And so is that something that needs to be proven to teachers, but because of our experiences now, they kind of get the gist of the value of the data, right? The value of the data.
Well, I think there's been a big focus on data, and I think no teacher goes into wanting to be a teacher and also wanting to be a data analyst. I remember being a pre-service teacher. I never took a class on data or reading student data. That was, I'm not going to say how many years ago that was. But even now, I think, we're expecting teachers to be data analysts. They are not. So we need to make sure that we're creating reports with the end user in mind. As you can see on the screen here, this is a report from a GoGuardian teacher about a student's classroom session. But if I flip over to Edulastic, which is our assessment tool, you can also see we're doing a huge overhaul of the data studio in there, and just providing teachers with actionable data that they can understand. Because among all the other things they have to do in a day, being a data analyst is not something that they had time for, nor were they taught to do. And
right.
I think, no, or should they? So, we're really making sure that we take, all the feedback that we've gotten about keeping end user in mind when it comes to data as well. So not just using tools, but also the reports that are generated. And I love that Edulastic makes it very easy to read, run reports, whether it's at the teacher level or the district level. Or even at the student level, being able to kind of share those reports with students as well and have them see their own, success and achievement is really important.
Yeah, so we've spoken about the teacher and the student and the parent. I see with Edulastic here, I see dashboards, I see administrators coming into our conversation now. Talk a little bit more about the different dashboards, or how this stuff can be presented and how is it presented differently, the data.
Sure. So I think one of the things that really the pandemic pushed is that a lot of schools procured a lot of online platforms. They're collecting a lot of data on students, from achievement to social emotional learning, attendance, behavior, college board information. All of this information is coming at teachers and at administrators, pretty much like a fire hydrant of information. Where does all this data go, and where can I make it go all into one place, so it becomes something that is actionable and can be used to help drive decisions? And what I think is really important is that, there is no perfect solution out there right now. I call it the unicorn of education. Where's that one screen or one platform where all data that we collect on our students can come into one place? And so everyone can see information in one pane of glass. It just doesn't exist right now. But I think what everyone is trying to do is build that right now. And I'm really excited about Edulastic's Data Studio, because we have been taking all of the feedback from educators and administrators and trying to make the most easy to use, easy to read dashboard that brings in the information that is essential to, or points of data that's essential to, school districts and what they need to know. So, we have everything in Edulastic, from preloaded items for assessment that teachers can use. They can create their own multiple item banks that they can bring in. And then we also have, a way that teachers can match their state assessment to Edulastic's interface. So students can practice taking an assessment, but feel comfortable knowing that this is what they're practicing for at the state level. So we do have a lot of things built into it, so teachers can kind of mimic about, what's happening with the state and bringing all that data into one place. So, right now, sometimes it feels like you're building the plane when you're flying it, but what's going to end up is that it's really going to become the most, easy to use and actionable dashboard out there. And so we're super excited about that, because, going back, we have Edulastic, we have GoGuardian Teacher, we have Pear Deck, we also have Beacon, which is our mental health, student, and safety. So all of these things can be pulled into one place. And that's really what administrators need too. I had like 30 different logins to get into different platforms to see analytics, and now it's all in one place.
Yeah. Again, I mean, so many things disrupted over the past couple of years, but the state assessments and the state testing, that spring of 2020, where everyone's just like, well, never mind, we'll move on, we'll forget this year. And and all the concerns about learning loss and the data that way, I think also scared a lot of teachers and parents and students. But when you look at some of these analytics, I mean, maybe we're getting to a point where the formative assessments that are going on here maybe could ultimately eliminate the need for that state testing and the bubble tests. What do you think?
So I think formative assessment is really important. I think we always want to know where our students are at and what they need. So I think that it's really important to be able to do some sort of testing to give us a baseline, to be able to help our students. I don't want to take a position on, state testing, but I do think that making it easy and actionable is definitely something that's important. We all want to know, I want to know for my own middle schooler, where is she with, 7th grade math right now? And where does she need to be at the end of the marking period? What is her best and how can she get there? I want to make sure every student is on a pathway to, the best that they can be. And I think, a lot of districts also procured a lot of platforms during the pandemic. And right now they're looking at them, okay, like what's working, what's not. And maybe you want to drive the usage or adoption of a certain platform that you really see is working, and you want more teachers in your district to use it. And one of the ways to do that is definitely creating a seat and GoGuardian teacher with that platform. So just as an example, if you procured, let's say, we'll say Edulastic for the sake of this presentation, and you want more teachers to use it, you can actually from a district level preload platforms in GoGuardian Teacher for your teachers to push down to students. So that also helps just roll out different platforms, the fidelity of them. I always think when I procure something, you can't really make a decision until the 3rd year, because we all know when you're rolling out something in a school district, whether it's a new math program or a new, assessment platform, the first year, it's a lot about integration and, setting up the system and teaching teachers and students how to use it. It's really not until that 3rd year that the product or the program is being used with fidelity. And GoGuardian Teacher can help with that implementation, because it can be part of that implementation plan and also help drive usage for those different products and platforms.
Now, another kind of label attached to big bad data is the idea of security and privacy of student data. Talk a little bit about some of the security features that GoGuardian has when it comes to the use of that data and where it goes and who has approvals. I mean, that's pretty sophisticated enterprise level sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, we have a whole student data privacy and trust program. And we also have, built into our platform, obviously, a lot of stopgaps for that. We have role-based access for a lot of our programs, because really, student data, a lot of schools think about the transition of all these different people in the past couple of years, leaving the profession, coming in, changing jobs. Who is the steward of your data in your school district? I think a lot of schools need to identify that. Who has access to data? So we really make it easy for districts to see who has access to, different parts of our data, being able to set that role-based access up so that, only certain people can see maybe their school and not the whole district. So we do take student data privacy very seriously. And, it's something that we're building into all of our different products, and definitely something that we're cognizant of, because it is at the top of mind. It's the #1 concern of all CTOs, is definitely student data privacy and cybersecurity. So definitely, building all of our products with both of those things in mind.
Yeah. If you could you bring your slide back up that has
Sure.
all the arrows to go around? I want to make sure we're hitting every part of the cycle.
Sure.
And I know, because I do want to ask you too about the implementation process, but yeah, so we hit admin. Well, what about Beacon? I guess that's one. Beacon and Tutor are still two that I want as we go to the bottom half of the hour here to make sure that we get some detail on. Maybe we start with Beacon first.
Sure. Beacon is our student mental health and safety platform. So it's part of kind of that blue suite at the bottom of GoGuardian Admin and GoGuardian Teacher. It basically is a product that helps schools identify students who are at risk, for safety. It's browser-based, so it does definitely, overlay on the browser for students that are searching for anything when it comes to suicide ideation or self-harm. Where I used to, be employed, we were probably the second user of Beacon and beta tested it. And it's one of those things where, definitely we work with each school district to create a system of support and response, because it's one thing, to turn it on, but to be able to prepare schools for how to respond when they're getting these things is, the other part of that. And so we have implementation specialists that stay with our schools, walk them through setting it up and making sure that all of our students are, safe, because that's another thing about handing out devices. Handing out devices, with great power comes great responsibility. Making
Right.
sure that not only are students not getting to things that are inappropriate, but that they're also, if something is going on and they need support, we're there to help identify that, and then also, direct them to resources that will help them. So that's our GoGuardian Beacon product.
Yeah, it seems like, again, another silver lining, I guess, if you can pull out mental health becoming front and center, because students can't learn unless they're in an environment, whether at home or in school, that they're feeling safe, right? And we all kind of suffered through this great group trauma, and it just kind of, it's interesting to see that as part and parcel of your circle there, which it might not have been there 5 years ago.
No, and we're really looking, at the whole learner. Just, I think 2 weeks ago in GoGuardian Teacher, we now launched this student check-in, where students can launch a check-in just to see how students are feeling today, if they're feeling happy or tired, or maybe they just don't want to respond. This gives that teacher that real quick, just taking the pulse of how's everyone doing. Maybe we need to stop for like the first 5 minutes of class and reset. Or maybe there's, one student that you want to message privately in GoGuardian Teacher chat, just let's check in before the end of class. You need to see a counselor. So I love this because it's not just classroom management. It's not just instruction. It's also, the emotional state of how students are feeling. Because like you said, it's really hard to learn when you're upset, when you're hungry, when you're tired, if you're nervous or anxious about something. And so for a teacher to be able to just get that pulse check right at the beginning of class, and it's already built into GoGuardian Teacher, there's no other clicks that they have to go to get out of it. So we're super excited about this new feature. And we hope that it will help teachers really assess not just students at achievement level, but also their emotional well-being.
Because this slides into just another one of those great phrases of personalized learning, right? And it goes beyond just what the student scores are, but it's kind of a holistic assessment of how they're feeling, or maybe this is why that their grades are a certain way. Pretty savvy, pretty sophisticated stuff. Now, the last part of the circle there was Tutor Me, and again, a pandemic reality was the idea of digital equity came into the equation for a lot of districts in terms of not being able to give equal tools to students in person, say either with counseling or with even just kind of straight academics. Remote tutoring became a solution in the wider sense of Edtech. Talk a little bit about the GoGuardian experience when it comes to that.
Yeah, so Tutor Me is our virtual 24/7 one-to-one tutoring platform. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. I think just like we said in the beginning of this webinar, that the pandemic was a great equalizer when it comes to access of devices. Having access to a tutor is also something that has to do with equity, because not every student has access to a tutor. If you think about it, a lot of students cannot afford, or families cannot afford, a tutor. And I always think back too, like, what if I had a tutor when I was in high school? Like, what would be different about my life now? Because there was definitely things that I struggled with, and tried to figure out on my own. And the funny thing is that I hear a lot of stories where during the pandemic, I know one school where the high school students kind of hijacked the district Zoom account, and they created their own virtual tutoring for the elementary kids, which is awesome disruption. And I love that idea so much. But is it sustainable, going forward? Maybe so, if there was a teacher overseeing it, maybe for National Honor Society. But, that really got us thinking, okay, if everyone can now learn online, if everyone can now teach online, why can't they also get tutoring online? Because everyone is, able to access a platform and comfortable to using it. And so what Tutor Me really does is it allows, those students to jump on anytime, whether it's before school, after school, and also during school is really where we see a huge spike in usage. And I love that, because what it shows is that educators have thought of ways to work that into their daily instructional model. Think about, having GoGuardian Teacher running, having students in groups, and maybe one group is working on, a skill with a tutor one-on-one in that station. To be able to also clone a teacher, I mean, if you are working with a small group and another student needs help and you can't get to them, that's something that's heartbreaking to a teacher. But being able to say, you know what, can you jump on to Tutor Me and ask the tutor quickly? They can hop on and they can take control of your screen. They can, share the whiteboard and work together. So what I just love about that definitely is it's an equity, but also it helps the teacher, because being able to have that support and having someone else that can help a student is really, really something when we talk about teacher retention and teacher
Yeah.
burnout and fatigue. Having students be able to access that is just, mind blowing. During the pandemic, all administrators had to go into classrooms and, be the teachers for the day. And I was like, I don't know if I can still do algebraic functions, but if you go on Tutor Me, you'll be able to find a tutor who can help you right away. So I think what it does is it also gives some of our newer teachers more confidence. Our substitutes, let's celebrate our substitutes, the people that are going in every day, not knowing what they're going to teach or what class they're going to be in. Being able to say to a student, I can't help you with that, but I think you can go into Tutor Me and get support or access, help with that certain topic. That's really a great equalizer, because think about it. If a substitute couldn't help you when you were in high school, Kevin, what would you do?
I would fall back asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Or, we also see it being used in study hall, credit recovery. We also have an essay review where students can upload an essay and get feedback on that essay within 24 hours. Think about how that would change a student's writing trajectory, or think about how much time that would save an ELA teacher. I'm a former middle school English teacher. I would come home with, probably 2 backpacks full of paper, or when we started using Google Docs, about 100 uncategorized edits that I would have to make. Think about now that the teacher has that lift off of them. Someone else is reviewing the first draft. The student is making the changes and then submitting it. It saves teachers so much time. And so I think, we at GoGuardian now have the full package of anything that educators or students need for success.
Yeah. Now, a statement in from the audience here that's just a reality check. In my state, we still don't have a device in every student's hand, and we especially don't have connectivity for every student. We have some large areas that don't have Wi-Fi or internet, including urban settings. It would be great if students could access school content on a school bus. So I think it's a good point that, there were a lot of strides made, but there's still a long way to go, right? In terms of the device in every pot.
Yeah, I'm sure there's still a long way to go. I know the FCC Broadband Initiative is doing a lot of work there. And I think, there probably still are pockets of it, and we need a reality check, but there are resources out there that we can still be using. And just the awareness level now too, I think is even great, that more people know about the need for this, and that we can, start to drive some resources to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talk a little bit about the next steps. When you see, we've kind of talked about the past and how we've been struggling through the pandemic, but as you look out, hopefully we are in our post-pandemic era here, and things are back to normal. From your experiences, where do you see this technology, specifically GoGuardian, but in general, just the concept of the use of content management systems in districts and more data-driven assessment and data-driven instruction? Kind of give us a peek into your crystal ball.
Well, one of the things I want to say is no new things. Okay, I think we have so many things right now, and let's get better at all of those things first. Because I think, we're back. Everyone has, almost everyone has a device now. We have all these platforms. Let's use them all with fidelity. Let's really learn how to use them without introducing a million new things to teachers. Let's give them the time and space to master something, and then also think of other innovative ways to use it. So I'd first say, let's start at that. Like, let's try to do no new things for a little while and just become the masters of what we already have and what we're good at. I think that's really important. But in terms of just kind of the future, I don't think devices are going away. I think, it's been proven that having access to a device in the classroom and at home is definitely something that's worthwhile. It's easy to administer assessments, get actionable data, check in with students, and differentiate and personalize learning. So that's where I see it going, is mastering and then thinking about how we can use all of these tools to really personalize or differentiate learning for each student. So I think that's kind of the direction that we're headed in, but also that everyone wants to do, because as we can see now that everyone learns differently at their own pace. Every student has been impacted differently from the pandemic, whether it was with learning or maybe mental health and safety. There's a lot of things that we're trying to help students recover from and regain. And I think the way to do that is through personalization and being able to really curate content, not just for a class, but for a group of students or an individual. And then bring in that support of something like a virtual tutor with TutorMe or Beacon with the mental health and safety. So I would just say doubling down on what you have and using it more effectively and using all the features in it is probably what I would like to say.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like a smart way to go about it. Now, I'm assuming that all the folks who are on this in the audience here listening to our conversation today already have some sort of system set up, right? I mean, especially again over the past couple of years, but they're looking to kind of go to that next level, or obviously maybe not completely satisfied with where they are in the path of their school or district. What are some first steps that you would recommend for an administrator or an instructional coach who's listening in here, who say, okay, I kind of want to get to this truly high fidelity enterprise research planning sort of setup? What would be the first three things that they should do?
I would say number one is to create student and teacher focus groups. I think definitely meeting with teachers and with students separately about the digital devices, about the platforms that you have, and getting feedback from those teachers and from those students. Honest feedback about what's working, what's not, what they need to be able to use these platforms more effectively, and just also getting feature requests from them as well. I think the voice of students and the voice of teachers when it comes to EdTech and procurement is so powerful, and we need to be listening to them because they are the end users of most of these products and they are the ones that are using it every day. So, you can always look at usage statistics. So I think number two would be looking at usage statistics. Let's see, like, what are the platforms that are being used the most? Who's using them? When are they using them? That's all great data, but I like to take it a step further, and I like to talk to the actual people that are using it and get their feedback. And I think that's the most powerful feedback that I've ever gotten from teachers or from students, is why they like a product or why they don't, and what they wish they could do with it. And maybe they just don't know that, it's possible that they could do something. So I would definitely say listening to both of those end users is very important. And then the third thing I would say is, definitely professional learning, meeting teachers where they are. Teachers, receive professional learning virtually during the pandemic. That should continue. Sometimes teachers learn better at night or in the morning in their pajamas with coffee. Does it have to be back to in-person all the time? I don't think so. I think being able to meet people where they are and being able to give them access to professional learning, whether in a learning management system or webinars like this, I think is really important. I think in person is great, but also being able to go back and learn on your own asynchronously is also really powerful.
Yeah, certainly a lot of advantages to kind of having a Netflix style of pulling down what you need in case you're not figuring something out, versus that 8-hour workshop the day before Labor Day and you're trying to start your school year, right?
Yeah, and badge it up. I love badges. I think being able to earn badges always motivated me. I love earning badges for different skills that I acquire. But let's celebrate teachers. Let's get them certified in these different platforms because they are the end users. And let's celebrate yourself. Put all your badges in your email signature on your social media. I think our teachers are experts in so many things, and being able to give them a certification is something that's really important. Being able to show and be proud of everything that you've mastered, all the skills and platforms that you've mastered, because it's not easy to learn so many platforms at once and be the master of all of them. So I think it's super important to have some sort of a certification program in the district as well.
Absolutely. Well, talk about, so you mentioned a 3-year kind of implementation phase. Give our audience a little bit of an expectation. They've taken your first 3 steps. They've kind of gone through those processes. What does that timeline look like for getting a system like this approved and implemented?
Well, I think for something like GoGuardian Teacher or Edulastic, I think Edulastic probably as the assessment tool would take the longest time to definitely implement, because it's such a assessment and data such a big bear. But I think by the end of year 3, what you're really doing is you're trying to look at historical data, seeing if the product is working, but then also really working with the vendor. we really want to be not a vendor, but a partner in education. So we're always working with our schools on, here's what your usage is, here's how your teachers are using it, this is what's coming, making sure that EdTech vendors are keeping their schools informed of new features, what's coming on the roadmap, and also, okay, all of your teachers have mastered, these 3 skills, here's the next round of things to master, and making sure that schools are comfortable, introducing teachers to these new features is, really vendor as a partner and not just a seller. So, super important to make sure that whatever you're procuring, the vendor is actually a partner in education, always working with you and keeping the education in mind.
So is this something that could be a kind of an a la carte solution for a district, or is this something that could be implemented incrementally over a period of time? Talk a little bit about that.
So our products, you can do them a la carte, or you can do them, in bundles as well. A lot of people do the safety and security bundle, or they'll do the curriculum and instruction bundle, but some people have all of our products. So, we do really, look at schools. What are your needs? What are your strategic goals? We kind of sit down with schools and say, what is it that you really want to achieve? And which of our products can help you achieve that? So it's really more about learning more about each district, because every district is different. And that's what's so exciting about education is that, we'll meet with a very large district or a very small district in, different parts of the country, and they all have different needs. And so it's really exciting for us to be able to offer so many products, because at least one of them is going to address a need in your district.
Yeah. Well, Erica, I knew the most difficult part of my job this afternoon would be to wrap up the conversation. We could go on for a while on all these various aspects and all the things that have changed over the past few years, and how technology has, really kept things going. All right. I mean, through these terrible months and years, just both going into the remote learning and coming back and having this conversation with you and with your insights, as tired as we all are of talking about COVID, really kind of seeing as we come out of it here that, hopefully we can come out for the better. So I really appreciate your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It was great chatting with you and seeing you again.
And I'd like to thank all of our audience members for joining us as well. So as a reminder, you'll get an email within the next few days that contains a link to this recording along with the slides. Thanks again for participating, and have a great day. Thanks, Erica.
Bye, everyone.